Well, thank you. It's good to see all of you here. And we never thought we'd have a success story to tell, but we do. And we're going to try to go through it. But I want to let you know that I want to take you back to 1972 in this very room. That's where this program started, although I didn't know it at the time. This used to be, for those of you who don't know this, the annex to the high school. This is where they had all the classes that no one wanted to take and no one wanted to teach. And in one of those chairs, in this part of the building, I was sitting there, and there was that old style thing with the flip-up side that you write on and all that. I was sitting here in behavioral science class, and day after day, it was an interesting class, but my mind was elsewhere. I was writing songs and putting down lyrics for my favorite songwriters. Who knew that so many years later, this would be the venue where we would launch Songs at the Center? The genesis of the whole program started on September 13th, 2012. Natalie's, which used to be here in Worthington, just opened, and I decided that I was going to put together something that had never been done in Columbus. I was going to present a songwriter round. And the guy that's just walking in was my first guest on the songwriter round, J.C. Schnars. We'll get to him a little later. But I put 3 people on stage, and everybody was, is this going to work? Is this going to work? And I didn't know, because it had never been done before. And that was the beginning to me finding the joy, not only of being a performer myself, but a greater joy of bringing people in who enjoyed playing and introducing an audience to this wonderful thing called a songwriter round, which I had discovered in Nashville, where 3 or 4 or 5 people get on a stage and they take turns singing. And it wasn't long into that my crazy ideas started, and I thought, this would make a pretty good TV show. Now, when you have a thought like that, you don't share it with everybody. So I took it to Andy Herron, Alan Beavers, and Jim Wilson, and we had lunch. And we started talking about what we were going to do, and the idea of a TV show, I didn't even want to tell them. I thought, let's just do a video. Of course, in my mind, I was thinking a TV show, but I thought, let's do a video. And so I called up some songwriting friends that I knew, one of them, Mr. J.C. Schnars. This was our first taping back in October of 2013, something like that. And soon after that, we took it to Channel 4. This was our very first one sheet, talking about the show, where it was going to air and this kind of stuff. And we did get it on for 5 weeks on Channel 4 on the MT channel at 10:30 on Thursday nights. And we thought we were really flying. Then WOSU heard about it, and they put it on after Austin City Limits. That's not where we still are, but the premiere program was on January 9th, 2015, when we made our home in public television. Then, I wonder how many of you can relate to this. There's nothing that says success like being in your late 50s, driving your aunt's Dodge Neon to an adjunct professorship. Well, that was me. When all of a sudden my phone rang, and on the other side it was, hello, is this Eric? Yes. Eric, this is John Oates. And I felt like saying, yeah, and I'm Daryl, whatever his name is, Hall, and But anyway, he had heard about the show through an agent here in town. And so let's see if we can get this. What was this?
Well, the judge said to the jury, hey boys, what are you gonna think of that? Stagger Lee shot Billy the Lion about a $5 Stetson hat. He's a bad man. Hello, Stagger Lee.
So he came on the show, and I don't want to say it changed everything, but some people started getting interested. One of them was the basement doctor. And so about this time, I walk into a meeting with Alan and Andy, and the program director at WOSU says, have you ever thought of syndicating this? Syndicating it? What's that? How do you do that on public TV? Well, she offered to send it to APT, I don't remember what those letters, American Public TV. And so about this time, we started thinking of syndication. And I just want to show you, once we won, I got to get this right.
Finished. The Basement Doctor has been
This
on
was
the
our
job
first
since 1987,
television
serving
show
Ohio
on public
homeowners,
television.
and proud to support live original music in Central Ohio and across the country.
Songs at the Center is pleased to introduce a one-man band and a singer-songwriter, Joey Hebdo. Joe, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So you brought your drum kit with you tonight, and you want to tell us about the song? This is a real crowd pleaser usually.
Well, this song's called "Baby Me," and the way it was just recently recorded. It was just with a full band, bass, and a bunch of horns, and it's real jazzy, real ornery, and it's just all over the place. But I just wanted to this time try something a little more stripped down with some friends, and hopefully everyone that has the the Holy Spirit overcomes them, and they can get involved.
Well, let's hear it.
All right, "Baby Me." Second love I ever had, give it all, do not.
So anyway, Baby, Baby, Baby Me was the first song that our public audience ever heard. And we were on about, and I'm going to let Jack tell this in a second, but we were on about, I think only about 500 stations, or 50 stations at that time, 50 to 65. Yeah. But anyway, so at this point, things started getting real. And I needed help. And this guy right here, I just want to introduce and say that I'm going to let him tell the rest of the story, but I met him in August of 1982 when I walked into the WTVN studios, and I'll let him tell the story, but I just want to say that he was my boss for about 8 years at that point, and he was the best, and to this day continues to be the best team leader I've ever worked with. He just is a motivator and gets people excited, makes them aware of things that they never thought they could do. And so I'll let you pick up the story from when I walked into WTVN and then how it transpired from there. Enter Jack FitzGerald.
I'm on the third day on the job at WTVN as the operations manager. And I walk in the morning through the lobby, and there's this, I don't want to demean him, but a young kid, basically, right out of college. And he had a paper bag, I think a Big Bear bag, and there were dozens of reels of tape in that bag. no rubber band around any of them. It looked like a grenade went off in this bag. And I said, what do you have there? And he goes, this is my work. You know, I go, well, what's the story? He goes, a couple of people at some other radio stations said nobody would be interested in this. I said, come on back, I'm interested. And I've always subscribed to the old saw, you never know where your next big idea will come from or who it will come from. So we go back to the office, and he nervously racks up one of these tapes, and it was a political satiric song that was, it just bowled me over. I go, how many of these do you have? He goes, oh, you know, 50 or 30, whatever it was. I said, can you do this every week? Can you create a new one based on a current event in the news and have it be either tugging at people's heartstrings or making them convulse in the aisles? And he looked at me, and he's got this deer in the headlights look. And I said, Eric, the right answer is yes, I can do that. So he said, yes, I can do that. And he did it. For 4 straight years, he turned out a brand new song. I say Eric reminded me of Mark Russell. Do you remember who he was? Only funny. I never thought Mark Russell was that funny. He's funny. And part of the job that I was tasked with was reconfiguring the demographic of the audience of TVN. At the time, AM was in a nosedive. It had been eclipsed ratings-wise by all the FMs, and they needed the audience to be brought down from a median age in the 60s to in the 40s, which was really difficult at that time because about 75% of the national audience had already moved over to FM by that time. So we had our work cut out for us, and I figured he's my point man. You know, he's gonna be appealing to a much broader age range than anything that I'm hearing at the time on AM radio anywhere in the country. And before too long, we had some other stations pick this up kind of on a syndicated basis. And I went to a couple of venues in town, mostly bars, and I said, what's your slowest night of the week? And invariably they said, Tuesday. I said, can I have Tuesday night? And we'll get a crowd here, and we'll take it from there. So on a loose handshake, we started down in German Village, and we had the #1 rated morning show in the state that I inherited and was smart enough not to monkey with, Bob Connors. And rest his soul, just a wonderful guy. And Bob could be difficult. I had people warn me when I took the job, people that had worked in this market said, Bob will tear you up. He doesn't like programmers, and he doesn't like young whippersnappers coming in there and getting all kinds of attention. He couldn't have been more gracious about accepting me as the leader of the team there, or accepting this new young man that came in with a brand new idea that nobody had ever had at the time on the radio. So we had the benefit of a built-in audience of the radio station, so we would promote Eric's appearance on Tuesday night for about a week ahead of time. And then Monday morning, we would debut a brand new song, and we'd promote the fact that you gotta hear it first on TVN Monday morning. So we'd gin up, you know, demand for this thing on all day Monday, Tuesday. And the first time we went to German Village, was that the Firehouse or something, or 50?
What was the name?
Engine House. We were in the basement, and they were lined up the stairs, through the main room, out the back door, and it was standing room only from night 1. And then we quickly outgrew that and went to some bigger venues. We wound up in the ballroom of the Sheraton back then with 500 people coming on Tuesday nights. The governor would show up with his highway patrol contingent, and half the songs were, you know, making a lot of fun of the governor and the mayor. You know, Buck would come, and it was really a heck of a run. And we did that for 4 straight years. The ratings at the station just skyrocketed. It was named Billboard runner-up Station of the Year nationally, And I kind of tagged along on that and was named Large Market Program Director of the Year for the country. And it was based in large measure for what Eric brought to the table, and some other people too. I hired John Corby. You may remember John, bless his soul. And you know, I'm dating myself because all my contemporaries from back then, fortunately, he's younger than I am, so he'll be around for a while longer. But the only reason I ever left Columbus, which I loved, and I never sold my house, I had a friend living in it for 20 years after I left, was to buy a radio station and to open up a national consulting firm that I really couldn't do out of here. So shortly thereafter.
Well, we just kept in touch over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd call me every Christmas Eve and, you know, ask me what was going on. And when I was at the radio station, one thing I remember distinctly is that he'd call, you know, as a program director, operations manager later, he'd call everybody together and we'd sit there in a big room and he had a bell and he said, if anyone says anything negative, I'm going to ring the bell. And, you know, it's that kind of positivity that he's always brought. And so he was just saying, you know, what's going on? And it's on TV show, you know, and he came down to a couple of the tapings and was really interested. And
I knew nothing about TV.
Yeah, but he knows about marketing. He knows audiences, and that to me is more important. So he got on board as a consultant first, and then we restructured the business, and he and I became partners. And then things started changing a little bit. We actually got some real sponsors. The Ohio Arts Council, Larry France and Associates from here in Worthington, and the Academy of Country Music Lifting Lives program, which was a game changer for us. And then once we started getting around 100 and 125 stations, Jack and I talked about really upping the game because this was now no longer a local or regional program. And at that point, we started getting more master series done. And here's a few of the people we've had: Rodney Crowell, John Oates, Jeff Daniels, Jim Brickman, Janis Ian, Ray Stevens. Who else have we had? Paul, Peter,
Schlitz.
Don Schlitz.
Part of Eric's idea that put an interesting twist on it was, you know, everybody knows who wrote
The Gambler.
The Gambler for Kenny, you know, but Kenny Rogers didn't write it. Let's find the writers of these iconic songs. The Gambler, Kenny Rogers. And
When you say nothing at all, he's just, I mean, if you want to look at the top hits of the 80s and early 90s,
he
Don
wrote
Schlitz
dozens
is
of them.
on everything, yeah.
Yeah, so Eric's idea, when he called and said, I need help, I go, okay, I'll listen. He sent me a link to a tape, and I was intrigued by it, but I told him, I said, I don't know anything about TV. My father was on TV in Cleveland. He was a sports director of the CBS station for 35 years. And I used to hang around the station with him, but I had never had any interest in TV. But radio was my love since I was about 6 years old. And I liked the idea of going into a little closet-sized studio alone and not having people staring at you and crew people and this and that. So I said, I don't know anything about TV, but he said, yeah, but you know how the media works. And you know how to build an audience and this and that and the other thing. So I had just one comment. I said, Eric, and I was very busy with my consulting, no longer directed at radio stations around the country, but businesses in different product categories. I said, if this is a hobby for you or a vanity project, I'm not the least bit interested. Good luck, have fun with it, but if you want to try and build a business out of this, I know enough about public TV to know that that's very difficult. Virtually nobody makes any money in public TV with two exceptions: Julian Fellows with Downton Abbey and that franchise, and of course Ken Burns. He swore to me, no, I want to go for this. And so we shook hands on the partnership, And we, you know, anytime you do anything entrepreneurial, you start with, you know, the idea and how you're going to execute it, but you should have an exit strategy in mind. But our handshake was, we'll both commit to this until its logical conclusion. And we were thinking, how long can this thing go? I mean, at that point, you know, a couple of years. Only 4% of the public TV shows that debut every year get a second year. And it's less than that for a third year. So to give you an example, the #1 longest lived contemporary, I always say contemporary because we discount
Lawrence
Welk doesn't count. You know, he's an outlier, a black swan. 50% of the public TV stations today are still running him. He died 50 years ago. You know, but of the contemporary music shows on public TV, we're the 3rd longest lived one at 10 years. #2, 17 years, and #1, 50 years this year, is Austin City Limits. To skip around a little bit here, in many major markets where we are adjacent to Austin City Limits, Songs at the Center wickedly outperforms it in the ratings. It's got much broader appeal and has done really well for the stations. And as Eric alluded to a little bit ago, before too long, WOSU here and Stacia Hentz, the brilliant programmer that we love and owe a lot of our success to, she moved our time period in front of Austin City Limits as their lead-in to try and draw more audience to those guys. But anyway, we started with 65 stations. We committed to making incremental improvements in all aspects of this. So we started really not knowing a lot about TV, but we went to school on it and we worked really hard to learn what it takes to be successful. Eric went right to the top. He called WNET in New York, the flagship station, and said, we don't know what we're doing, help. And we found that the higher up people were in the industry, and I've known it to be true in other industries, the more gracious people are. A couple of general managers of public TV stations essentially opened their books to us and told us, you know, all their secrets, all their budget numbers, et cetera, et cetera. And it really, really helped. And then we started looking, we flew, you know, we're looking at it, okay, the show's okay, but it isn't great. We flew in a Broadway set designer, and he flew it in his own plane too, and came here and sat here with our stage crew and helped teach us how to do better lighting than we were doing. And then I asked around, who does the post-production for Ken Burns? They go, oh, well, that's Pillar to Post company out of Arlington, Virginia. I get on the phone with them. Eric and I go and meet with them, and they take us on. And we've got the best people in the world. They're working on Ken Burns' series now for 2030. They're already shot and accepted by PBS, and they're doing the post-production on the raw tape right now. So we're really proud. Oh, and then in public TV, it can be a little snooty of an environment, especially for a couple of slobs like us. And in public TV, there's an unwritten rule that lowly producers of content like us, we're not allowed to call the station and introduce ourselves and ask them if they've heard about our show and would you care to carry it. You're not allowed to do that. They'll hang right up on you. In most cases, we got some nasty remarks from a couple of people, and you have to hire a station relations manager. And there's a dozen of them in the whole business. They are all ex-program directors of public TV stations, so they're wired into the network that you need to reach. They know who all the programmers are. They go to conventions together and stuff, and it does make sense. It keeps a lot of nuisance calls from landing on the programmer's desk, and Lord knows they've got, you know, a rough job without us banging on their door. So we found the 12 that do it, and then we went to the top stations around and said, who are the 2 best? We don't want number 3, 4, 5. because the first two, that'll be arguable. You know, half the people say that's the one, that's the one. When you get down to 3 and up, you know, everybody knows they're not in the top 2. So we packed at that time, the company consisted of Eric, myself, Jim Miller, and Andy and Alan. We put Andy and Alan and us in a car, and we drove to Atlanta for the American Public TV Programmers Convention. And this was when we were first invited. And we like to say we had no money. And we stayed in Eric's cousin's basement. That sounds like a great, you know, developmental story, kind of, so many of those are apocryphal. And the sidebar is his cousin's husband was the CFO of Coke. So this basement had 3 suites and 2 or 3 bathrooms, but we were about 40 miles outside of town. And we drove into the convention wide-eyed, not knowing what to do. And for 3 days in a hotel ballroom, APT has only accepted about 100 submissions by wannabe producers. And all the ones that are a shoo-in for coming back, they're a given. But they air, you have to submit a sizzle reel. And that's a 3 to 5 minute sample of what you're trying to sell to all these stations. And our sizzle reel, you know, was, in fact.
It was with Joey Hebdo. It was taken from that first show.
Yeah, and we're a nervous wreck. They're going to show all these 100 to 200 3-minute tapes in 2 days, and all the program directors have to sit there and vote on them. I will carry this show. It's great. I won't carry it. It's terrible. Or I might carry it. And if you get 25 will carries, that's considered pretty good. They don't have to offer you a syndication offer, but they might if they really like the show, subjectively. And we got 65 will carries, and we're asking them, is that good? I mean, we hadn't figured out the 25 thing and all that, and they just were laughing at us because we were so naive. They said, you're a shoo-in. And within 1 year after going on the air with the 65 plus, a year later it was 150, and off the record, the people at our PBS distributor have told us, you guys are so dependable. 6 music shows failed during COVID, and we had worked ahead, not anticipating COVID, obviously. Don't get ahead of you? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you can tell I'm excited 10 years into this project about this, I am. And I don't know if I'll admit that I don't own a TV or not, but it's true. There's 8,000 books in the house, there's no TV. But I study it, and I read about it, and I talk to people in it, and I survey people, and when I'm in a hotel room, I've got that thing. And,
his mind is always going. I'm getting texts in the middle of the night, you know, when my mind's going.
He always answers. Yeah. And I tell everybody, you know, that we're dealing with, if you've got an idea, literally at 3 in the morning, I've got a very understanding wife, I've got a little flashlight and a little pad and pen, and we don't want to get it. We want to be receptive to every idea that's brought to us and not let anything get around us, over us, under us. And that's what I love about working with Eric. I mean, it doesn't matter what the idea is or who it came from. He, similarly to myself, is receptive to it. I think in 10 years, the only major disagreement we've had, and it was a big one, was the color of the logo on our hats. He prefers the white lettering, and I wanted a little dash of color up there. But other than that, we tell people, you know, we each speak for the company. You don't have to worry about, you know, us contradicting one another. We know where we're going. We have a plan. I'll make one more point, and then I'm turning it over to Eric for the rest of this. He's got a tale to tell. But we talk about all these stations, and it's the latest number is 475 and 47 states, but that includes our Black History Month special. The number on the weekly show since its inception has been 50,000 individual episode airings, 50,875. That gives you an idea how often they rerun these. And each season that we offer to PBS, it's a one-year season with 2 years of unlimited reruns. So in an average calendar year, there's about 6,300 reruns of Songs at the Center in those 43 states that are carrying the weekly show. And that's kind of unheard of. And PBS, I started to say, they off the record have told us, we don't even have to preview the next season for you guys. You know, just send it, we'll accept it. And that takes a big load off our mind. Another misconception is people are going, you guys must be rolling in dough. And we had trouble getting funding because there's this misperception that they pay for the production or anything, or WOSU helps with the production. We, in public TV, except for Ken Burns and Julian Fellows, it doesn't matter how many stations you get. You have to form a production company and sell underwriting packages to pay for all the production, the legal work, the licensing work on the music, the talent. We pay talent. A lot of public shows don't. We pay everybody connected with our show, from the makeup and hair dresser to our drone operator for footage outside of the theaters. Every one of them is on our payroll, but nobody, the outside funding 100% comes from underwriting sponsorships. And if we fall short or we lose an underwriter, the James, bless them, has been with us for 8 years, consecutive years now. But we can't take that for granted. So we're always working on fundraising. And the state of Ohio, Jobs Ohio, is we're producing right now. We're in production for the 5th consecutive year with them. And Governor DeWine even said, you know, guys, I'm not going to be in office. He's a music nut, by the way. I'm not going to be in office forever. You better start looking, you know, in case the next guy or gal doesn't like you. You know, so it's very precarious. We are above water, but no, you know, you don't go into public TV to get rich, but we don't spend 10 years doing anything to go broke either. So that's kind of the way we look at that.
And one of the ideas that came about when we were looking for sponsors was we walked into the Ohio Arts Council and met Donna Collins, who's a wonderful, wonderful lady. And I was introduced to her by Mike Duffy, who was, at the time, was a representative, and he was working with the arts in Ohio at that point. And she, we got talking with her, and we developed a music and healing workshop that we went around the state and put on. And then we also did some, this is from our workshops, and then we also did some music and healing shows. This slide you're looking at was that was the first music and healing show we did with Dave Tolley, who is a Worthington native. He was sitting in the seats at the Tonight Show back on December 23rd, 1984, or something like that. The piano player didn't show up. Johnny Carson called him up, and he blew it away. He became an instant celebrity. But he was one of the guests, and we were turning people away that day at the MAC. And one of our, as Jack said, we have to watch every penny that we have because we do not have the luxury of making many mistakes. Finally, when we had the resources, we put together a celebration of Black History Month. And I want to show you the sizzle reel for that. We called in a producer for that show and a host.
On this special edition of Songs at the Center, we celebrate Black History Month. Here's the producer and host of this special, Kim Haas.
I've gone into the Songs at the Center archives to curate a choice selection of noteworthy interviews and performances I think you'll really love for this Black History Month special edition.
John, you know, one thing about you is that no one is going to say that you're subtle.
That's a compliment, right?
Well, you come by it honestly.
I come from the civil rights worker James Chaney was my cousin that was killed in 1965, signing up people to register to vote. And so that activist spirit is in me, but I'm a granddaughter of a sharecropper. I'm a result of the Great Migration where a lot of people left the South and came to Detroit and Ohio because of the auto industry. So that was escaping the South. And I'm, you know, the generation that was born from that. No matter where you go, try and be good. There come a time you need to speak power to truth. Oh. Where are we going?
Why is Black History Month celebrated in February? To incorporate the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Douglass, born into slavery, taught himself to read and write, and rose to become not only the great abolitionist, but an advisor to presidents and one of the leading intellectuals of his time.
We understand that American music and American culture is built from the coming together of all of our cultures. And when we start to celebrate, you know, we tolerate back pain, but we celebrate diversity. So the idea is, thank you. For a queen wearing rags is a queen nonetheless. They taught us the beauty of blackness. Forget not our fathers who were home.
Sœur et son frère, je serai près de toi. Attends, dans le jour où nous serons ensemble, pourquoi ne pouvons-nous pas trouver?
So beautiful. Wow, it was a good day. Mama, yeah, so beautiful.
Black History Month actually began as Negro History Week in 1926 at the urging of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the second Black person to earn a PhD from Harvard. Who was the first? W.E.B. Du Bois.
You've written a song that I guess we could say was inspired by something that you saw on Facebook, and if you don't mind, I'd just like to read that to you. She was reminding us of the Jews trapped in their homes. Oops, what happened? Let me get this back up. I don't know what happened.
Did a connection come loose down on the floor?
No.
Oh.
It's coming back up.
The pressure is on. All these people watching you. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. That's about the point where we lost it, I think. coming back up, Eric?
On this special edition of Songs at the Center, we celebrate Negro History Week in 1926 at W.E.B. Du Bois.
You've written a song that I guess we could say was inspired by something that you saw on Facebook, and if you don't mind, I'd just like to read that to you. She was reminding us of the Jews trapped in their homes during the Holocaust and how they couldn't sing or make any noise at all for fear of certain death, but that we, even during this very scary ordeal, can.
Yeah.
What happened then?
Yeah, you know, it was just such a great bit of perspective on, even though we were going through this very scary pandemic, the thing that people were complaining about, which was staying home, was actually keeping us safe, and that we could still sing, we could still dance.
6 feet apart, won't stop us, don't need to hold you in my arms, I still know you in the dark, just 'cause I can't kiss you underneath the moonlight, doesn't mean we have to feel alone tonight. Let's get closer, from 6 feet apart.
Me being a human who wants as much good to come from this world as possible, that's what matters.
So I'm trying to get this back so I can see what...
On this special edition of Songs at the Center...
Sorry about this, folks. We just have no control over this.
We celebrate Black History Month. Here's the...
Can you turn it off for a second so I can... Okay. All right, we'll try this. We'll keep going here. Then I just want to show you a few sizzle reels. This is what we use to sell the show season to season. And we've just got some stuff here that are some of our favorites, and I just want to play them. Do we have volume?
Put on my blue suede shoes, I boarded the plane, touchdown in the land of the Delta Blues, in the middle of the pouring rain.
You said that you really feel in the groove as a songwriter when you're not writing from craft. You're not paying attention to that. But yet there's a merging of instinct and craft involved. How do you know when you're on to something?
That's a great question. You want to get as much time in and as much done with the song as you can before craft comes into it. So the longer you can use your subconscious and that sort of flow, the better.
There should be another verse here at the end. It's coming to me.
Oh, shoot. Well, I don't know what's happening there, but I was going to show you some sizzle reels, but you've all seen the show, I take it. I want to talk a little bit about some of the writers that we've had and what it's meant to me as a songwriter to, to talk to them. I find that because I've spent my life writing songs, I know a little bit about the process. Our credentials might be a little different. No, I've not won any Grammys or anything like that, but I understand what it's like to hit fallow periods. I understand what it's like to be working forever and all of a sudden you're stepping out of your car and you get an idea. And these are critical things. And as Jack says, He said one of the most impressionable things on him is when I ask a question and a songwriter goes, you know, I've never thought of that before.
Every one of these Grammy Award winners at some point, every one of them has said the same thing. They get the startled look and go, I've never been asked that before. And I honestly believe he is the best interviewer of talented people in the United States. Janis Ian, the multiple Grammy Award winner, has a reputation, perhaps well-earned, for being a bit prickly over a 50-year-some career. And she compared Eric in writing to being interviewed by either Leonard Bernstein or the BBC. She said those were the only two other people that ever interviewed her to her satisfaction and to the depth that Eric reached. And I took that as a personal endorsement of what I had held to be true from the beginning. He stressed to me when we got together, this show has to be authentic. It can't be too flashy. It can't be Hollywoody with flying cameras all over the place and a lot of sizzle but no steak. He said we've got to be authentic. And he also, for a creative person, his business instincts are such that he told me, and I was delighted to hear it, frankly, he goes, well, let's try for a couple of grants the first season. But if we don't build a strong enough affiliate base and audience, we don't want to be on the public dime for any time after season 1 or 2. We won't deserve it. So Donna Collins came to a shoot, and we invited her, and I looked back at her after the shoot was over. She just had a tear coming down her cheek. And she came over and gave me a hug, and she said, we've just got to keep this show going in Columbus. And we had a meeting with her, and she said, you know, we've got some grants that you guys could apply for. We had never written a grant proposal. So we found out who the best grant writer in the state is, most productive, and we called her up and we couldn't afford her. But she said, you can rent me for an afternoon. And he and I took notes, you know, volumes of notes while we picked Diane Catron's brain. And we got the first 4 grants that we applied for. And then we stopped. We stopped applying for them. And not that we were rolling in money, but in order to fulfill our promise to not be a charity case, we needed to earn our airtime. And so far, you know, it's worked. We wanted to approach it as a business, not a philanthropic move. So when we go to major corporations, you know, any sales effort, you're going to hear 100 no's for maybe 1 yes. But in the old days, you would go to a giant Ford Motor Company or something like that, and the minute they heard PBS or public TV, they'd go, oh, our philanthropic department is down the hall. You know, you have to walk past their multi-million-dollar art collection to get down there. And companies don't have philanthropic departments anymore. They send you to their ad agency, and the metrics for judging success on public TV are totally different than commercial TV. They're not used to it, and the minute you get shuffled off to Buffalo down the hall to the marketing department, you're dead. If you're a public TV project, they don't want to hear about it. We don't give donations anymore. That's how they looked at any attempt at a sponsorship from anybody connected with public TV. Oh, you're looking for a donation to keep public broadcasting on the air, you know, that kind of thing. And we didn't want to do that. We've got a great show. We're on 470 stations, and here's what we can offer you. We play them a tape. We show them the reaction from the Grammy Award winners. There's a network of them where now when they agree to come on the show, they go, yeah, we called Rodney Crowell, and he said he had a blast. Or we called Jeff Daniels, the actor, who also is a good songwriter. You know, Jeff said he had a ball. And he invited us up to his home studio in Michigan. We put 14 people in trucks, and up we went. Ray Stevens, 83 years old, still as creative as ever. He invited us down to Nashville to tape him for a master series. You know, this is a guy that did The Streak on one hand, the highest selling novelty record of all time, and he did Everything is Beautiful on the other side of the equation. His range of talent is just mind-boggling.
Well, I want to get to something you said about what a great interviewer I am, because I think the audience should see this. Are we on? Are we on?
He's developed into just the smoothest on-camera performer you can imagine.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Are we on? Welcome to Songs at the Center. We're the fun show that's
with the capo on. Then when I'm done, I take the capo off. Now my guitar's out of tune for this. I have to constantly tune the guitar on and off. I know you're not interested, but I'm just filling time while he gets made gorgeous.
Tom Douglas never had that problem.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I know you guys are doing all right. I'm keeping my eye on you. Gary Burr is a 3-time Songwriter of the Year winner. He's got 20 ASCAP awards and has had his... A
lot of other songwriters up here, they wouldn't even bother tuning. Tom Douglas never tunes. Of course, he's a piano player, but the point I'm trying to make.
My wife, her therapist said to her, encouraged her to embrace her imperfections, so she come home and immediately gave me a hug. That's a funny line. I think that's funny.
We're very pleased with our guest today, Mark Orelli.
Oh, thank you so much.
Angela Pace. Oh, Angela Pace. You threw me off when you started playing. I didn't tell you.
I know.
Not to.
I didn't realize we were doing introductions.
Angela
okay.
Pace. My God, is Angela here by chance? The only thing that I don't like is that you all get to capture my mistakes. You get to see them, but we'll just keep that between us, if that's okay.
Love doesn't come. Sorry, one more time. I need a sip of water. Sorry, guys.
Okay, once more with feeling. Here we go. On this show, we have a gentleman whose history is as varied as you can imagine. He's written
What are we doing? You want to hear another
I want
song?
you to just keep talking. We'll get 3 shows out of it, and people will be entertained.
Sorry.
I don't need this. I just...
He just likes it.
It was so much fun.
Did you hear Eric? He asked you a question.
Yeah.
You must know my wife. We're coming to you from the Woodward Opera House in Mount Vernon, Ohio, which is the oldest theatrical event center theater. I got to do this again because I really screwed that up.
Memorize your every move. I really screwed up the melody at the beginning of this chorus. Can we take it again? I'd really like to do that. Is that a possibility? I can just keep droning on this chord until you all agree, and I drive you crazy. Who do I have to ask? Who do I have to buy a pastry for? Who?
All right. Well, before I go any further, I want to introduce the man who wrote the theme song, J.C. Schnars. You've been introduced 3 times now. J.C. and I have known each other for many, many, many years, and I want to tell this quick J.C. Schnars story. It was in 1981, 2, something like that. I was hanging out at his house, and he comes in, and he's got this groove going. He goes, man, he says, I can hear this. I can hear Eddie Rabbitt playing this. Yeah, okay. And so he sends it down to Nashville, and 6 months later, Eddie Rabbitt releases it as the first solo on his album, and it was played on the Bob Hope special. So I learned at that point to take especially J.C.'s dream seriously. But he went on to be a Grammy nominee for a song that he wrote, and there's a great story behind that. but thanks for coming down and being part of this. And as I said earlier, he was our first guest. I'm going to show you, this is our crew. This is about half of our crew. We try to get them together after every shoot, but that's our latest look at them. And another individual I want to introduce you to is sitting over here, Gene Castelli. Gene is a songwriter and an entertainer. He's also our catering and hospitality director. And when we got into this show, you know, I'm a songwriter. That's all I want to do. But I got into the show, and I'm discovering there's just more things to do than, I mean,
a lot of moving parts.
Insurance, cameras, copyright, trademark. I mean, all this stuff.
We have lawyers in Washington, Nashville, and Columbus, and a lady on the payroll around the clock 12 months of the year just to handle the paperwork for each song.
And she's, wait, she's here? No, she's not here. Oh, sorry. I thought she was here. But anyway.
Striking resemblance, ma'am, to Karen.
But anyway, especially when the light's in our eyes. But anyway, all this stuff, and it came to the point where, wait, we got to get somebody to do hair and makeup. Well, yeah, we do, you know. So, oh, man, that's going to cost money. And we found the most wonderful woman to do that. And then it was like, we got to cater. Luckily.
It saved time because the crew would gather 4 hours before the taping starts to set the stage, get the lighting going and everything like that. And they were sneaking up to McDonald's, and we couldn't track everybody down. We got to just bring it in-house and streamline everything.
So luckily, I looked through my Rolodex, which I don't have anymore. But anyway, I look for the best caterer, put it in Jack's language, I look for the best caterer in the western Worthington area. And I couldn't find any, so I called Gene. No, Gene is an experienced caterer. He's worked at Ohio Wesleyan and all these places as a food developer. But that's in addition to his songwriting talents. And I selected this picture to share with you because this was a special we did. It was not taped, but it was for one of our supporters, Barbara McFarland, who is a Worthington resident, and she's been very generous to help us with her contributions. And so we did a show for her, and we wanted to prove that indeed everybody involved in the show has talent and is a songwriter. So Gene got up and did a song, and that's from his performance for her. I appreciate you coming, Gene. And here's some people we also want to make sure get thanked. Alec Whiteman, Larry France, Dan Hanby, Stacia Hentz, John Cook, who was the director here when we started the project, Jerry Katz, Jackie Morgan, John Bader, who has written a book called Straddling the Abyss, and he's making sure that every penny from that book goes to Songs at the Center to help support us. And, of course, Barbara McFarland, Kim Goodman, and Eric Von Wagner, who's been helping us today. And then, of course, our musician, the guy who wrote the theme song, J.C. Schnars. And just to kind of wrap up our presentation before we take before we take questions, this is our carriage from the beginning of September. Started from one station in Columbus to what, 48, it's 82.96% of the channels of the country that carry the show. And Jack wanted us to get some idea of, you probably can't read this, but this is our call list. This is for a taping we're doing on this coming Tuesday, which I'll talk about in a second. But we send one of these out every time we tape, and Karen, our artist liaison and assistant producer, just lays everything out so every minute we know what's going on, where people are.
It's about a 6-hour endeavor to get 2 episodes uh, only because we've got it mapped out by the minute. You know, when they walk in the door, when they go to hair and makeup, when they go to sound check, when they go camera check, lighting check, off-stage interviews. Eric does a pre-interview that we pull snippets from to intersperse into the show before they even get on stage to perform an interview up here.
And then if you have not gotten on our mailing list, I want to make sure that you know where to go, songsatthecenter.tv. That's our, I'll give you a second to write it down if you'd like to. That's our website where you can find out a lot more about the show. And can you tell another story while we're waiting for people to write that down? And well, if you need it, I'll give it to you later. And I want to let you know that we have some more tapings coming up. One of them is Tuesday, October 17th, which is a week from yesterday, from 1 to 3. We're going to welcome Tom Schuyler, who is a friend of JC's actually, and they met years ago. But Tom Schuyler is a member of the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's written many, many songs that you know by Kenny Rogers and Eddie Rabbitt and just a ton of people. So he's going to be our guest next Tuesday. And then from 1 to 3 p.m. And then on November 18th, we're putting a show together, and it's to be, the time of the day is going to be announced, but we're bringing in 3 comedy songwriters, and we're going to do a show with them. And of course, that's one of the risks we take, because what I think is funny might not be what you think is funny, but that's the way we do things. We're always taking risks. It's here. Both of those are here. 77 Evening Street. You can put your Garmin or your whatever on, and it'll point to right where you are, because that's where we are. And a reminder, the show airs every Saturday at 11 p.m. And again, we want to thank our sponsors, Jobs Ohio and the James. And I'm sorry about the videos that you couldn't see, but they are available on our website. If you want to go to the Watch channel or the Watch page, you can see them on those. But we want to stop right now and ask some questions, find out what you're all interested in, if anything. So feel free to go ahead and ask. Well, if you're all going to speak at once,
we're committed to offering a lot of different genres. So
yeah.
So, is there someone that you have tried to get and been unsuccessful getting to appear that you're continuing to go after, or is there someone on your wish list?
Yeah,
Weird Al. He's playing with symphony orchestras now, and it's interesting. We've been after him for about 3 or 4 years now. We just missed on a scheduling thing. It's like herding cats. You know, they've got to be in our part of the country. We'll travel 2 or 3 states if we have to, with trucks full of gear and everything. We put about 14 or 15 people on the road to do a remote. We're talking to Jackson Browne. The Rock Hall has contacted us, and they want us to shoot a show there and bring in an inductee to the hall. So they've suggested that we contact the manager. This is all just the past month or so.
Yeah.
That we contact the management. So we're getting good referrals from the Rock Hall. We'll travel up there almost certainly during the current season that we're taping right now.
Yeah, and if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll find out when all this stuff's happening and where. But when Jackson Browne was unable to make it, we're looking into John Mellencamp as a replacement. But you know, all the names you would expect are on our list. We've talked to Kenny Loggins. Yeah, his people.
And we've had his 2 partners for the group he plays with on the show. So they've told him you can't miss this. So.
But it's hard. I mean, it's hard. The top names are really difficult to get, but we're working on it. And we fail a lot more than we succeed, but we're on it every day. There's two things we do every day of the week. One is look for guests, and the second thing is look for sponsors, because when that money runs out, we're done. But we also, we look for the top names, but we also have our ear to the people, the up-and-coming writers, people like Chris Matthews, who is on the Black History Month special. She's relatively new.
She's appeared at the Kennedy Center since being featured on the show. And I got to interrupt Eric for a second. One thing that kind of is an insight into where his heart is, when we started this, he said, I want to get some big names, but I want to provide exposure to young up-and-comers. They can't be hobbyists. They have to be working professionals that are early in their career. And he said, if some guy running a venue in Boise, Idaho, sees him on the show and contacts him and books him for 2 or 3 nights, he said, that's 2 or 3 nights they can work on their craft instead of slinging hash or working at a McDonald's those nights. Because, as you can all imagine, it's a rough racket to get into. And some of the most accomplished songwriters of the last 50 or 60 years, as far as the number of #1 hits they've had, we've had on the show. And you'd never know their names, And a common thread among them is, well, I'm 62 years old. Nobody wants to hear from me anymore. And he had 30 top 10 Billboard hits, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. We've heard that same thing. It's a young person's game, but not fairly, you can be 100 and write a great song. It's just getting harder for them, in some respects, to crack the, get behind the curtain and figure out how it all works.
And our famous artists tend to be older, and the reason for that is that they have good things to say. Yeah. The younger artists, have talent, and of course I'm generalizing, but they have talent, but their stories and their experience doesn't quite measure up to the people who can, just tell us unbelievable stories. Peter Asher, when he was on the show, told us about being the first person ever to hear "I Want to Hold Your Hand." He said, yeah, John and Paul came over one day. Paul McCartney was living in Peter Asher's mom's house with Peter at the time. And so he brought John Lennon over. He says, yeah, they went down to our basement and they were playing the piano, and Paul came up and said, hey, I got a song I want you to hear. He said, I sat down. He said, I heard "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on the piano. That's the instrument it was written on.
And then Peter Asher went on to have hits on his own with Peter and Gordon. And then he became the first artist and repertoire vice president for Apple Records and discovered James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt and signed them to their first contracts.
And he also produced Robin Williams' last album.
And I don't get starstruck very often, ever, hardly. But he was special. And he's one of the nicest human beings you would ever want to meet. And should I tell the $200 story?
Oh, yeah,
Things
yeah.
have changed a little bit from then. We at the time, we were able to pay these Grammy Award winners $200. It was almost embarrassing. But they kept coming on, and I'm proud to say we've upped the game quite a bit now. We're fortunate to be able to do that now. But I'm kind of the money guy the day of the shoot. I walk around with checks. We want to make eye contact and thank people and give them their money before they leave the building, so that they're not trying to track it down later or wonder, who got the check. I tell the artists when they walk in, don't leave here today without seeing me. And Peter was talking with Karen, one of our crew members, after the shoot, and I interrupted to give him his check. And I said something like, he was telling our crew member how much he loved living in Malibu. And he was on the show with Albert Lee, who had been the music director for the Everly Brothers for 20 years and a Grammy Award winner in his own right. And they both live in Malibu. And I walked up and interrupted, and I said, I have your check for you. And it won't go very far, but we really appreciate you coming on the show. And he looked down and he goes, I didn't even know we were getting paid. He didn't pay any attention to the contract. In fact, he had been on a really hectic tour, and usually we get the contract signed a month ahead. We put the contract in front of him when he walked in, and he said, I don't need to sign that. And some of the artists are just, they'll read every line, and they should. And he said, you know, it says that you can do anything you want with my music and make millions of dollars with it. And he was being facetious. And he said, but isn't that the point, to have more people hear my music? He said, I don't need to sign that. Do what you will with it. He was so generous, you know. But anyway, I said, this won't go very far. And he looks, he goes, I didn't even know we were being paid. He goes, Jack, I beg to differ with you. This will buy a fine bottle of wine, and we'll enjoy it immensely out at dinner in Malibu. Thank you. And he hugged me. I mean, that's what kind of a guy, and it was just a genuine moment. He produced something like 30 top 10 albums, and he's 80 years old now, I think, and he had an aneurysm recently, and I think he's back out on the trail.
Yeah. One of my special moments was when we had Janis Ian here. And it was a very personal moment for me because, you know, I went to Worthington High School, as I told you earlier, but I remember being a senior in high school and, you know, having those adolescent feelings of being lost and you're the only person in the world who feels this way and all that kind of stuff. But I was pulling out of a football game one night, and when I was a senior, and I turned on the radio, and she was singing Jessie. And, you know, all those years later, to be up on stage 6 feet away from watching her play Jessie was I mean, it was just off the charts moment for me. Any other questions? We'd like to, yeah, Bill?
You are more than welcome.
Well,
Oh. PBS would love it, frankly.
Well, it's just there's so many wonderful stories, and I hate any of them are lost.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. And before I answer the question, I also want to promote your book. He's an author of a book called WG, and we did the introduction of it right here at the MAC. So check it out, WG. It's a great book about the Civil War and about one of your relatives. But, you know, I like it. I like it that the show feels short because, you know, I mean, I've watched it several times and it's over already. But that's the way I want the audience to feel, number one. Number two, when we start making it twice as long, it's going to cost twice as much money. Yeah.
More than twice as much.
Yeah.
There's only two of us doing.
Jack, get your mic.
There's only two of us doing a lot of. It's really, it's almost 7 days a week every week. 7 days a week. It's just kind of consumed us, and that was not the intent. But the reason we have 50,585 episode airings to date is so many stations are pulling previous shows from the season. The 2 seasons before are still available to them, and they're doing 1 hour blocks. A tremendously high percentage of the stations carrying the show do run them back to back, or they run another episode on another day. And oddly, when we started, we're thinking, you know, well, who on the coasts are going to be interested, programmers primarily, going to be interested in flyover country? We're doing this little show out of Columbus, Ohio. Is there any hope ever getting it on WNET or KQED in San Francisco or KCET in LA? And they are our biggest fans. We are heard or seen, that's my radio, we're heard. We're seen 6 times a week in New York City on 3 different public TV platforms that WNET controls. We're also on 22 statewide PBS networks, where every PBS station in the state carries the show at a specified time. But I lost my train of thought there.
I'll pick it up.
you will.
Well, this is not a good segue, but Bill and I have talked at length over the months and years that he's been coming, and one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten from Bill is that every shoot is a clinic on songwriting. And on a larger scale, it's a clinic on the creative process. But songwriters, like when Mike Reed, you might remember him as a football player for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's since gone on and won 2 Grammys, or at least 1. But he showed us what he does during a fallow period. He says, I'll just hit 1 note. And he was, for 20 seconds, was just hitting 1 note. And then he says, then maybe I'll hit a second one. He says, I might do this for 10, 15 minutes. And that was really instructive to me as a songwriter and to Bill as a writer. And that's kind of my way of wanting to lead into a plea to you all to, we have a blast when we tape these shows, but it's a learning experience. And I'm quite frankly amazed that with all the songwriters we have in Columbus, they aren't lining up to get into these tapings, because it really, these are the finest songwriters we can get our hands on, and it is a clinic. And, I just want to encourage you, if you know anybody who's interested in songwriting or the arts at all, to come to our tapings, because inevitably we talk about the craft. That's really what the show is about. Did you remember what you're going to say yet? And I guess along those same lines, I'll say that I guess you're never a hero in your own town. And we've certainly found that out, that in other towns, they're very, people are emailing me asking where they can get hats and this and that about the show. But in Worthington and Columbus, we have to pull teeth to get people to come out. And we really would like you to spread the word about the show, because we feel it's special, and it's a service to people, and it's entertainment. And, I guess I can say there's really nothing like it on TV or as a performer. I will also add that one of the frustrations for me has been, as a songwriter, I just don't have as much time to devote to the craft. But the joy that comes from meeting these people and talking to them and hearing their stories is just, I can't describe how much that replaces the joy of songwriting. I still write here and there, but not as much as I used to. But when you hear Mike Reed tell the story of how he wrote I Can't Make You Love Me, it's just amazing. It started off as he had a writing date with Alan Shamblin. And Alan, I think it was, brought in a newspaper story about some guy who was before the judge. I think he shot his wife's car or something. And he told the judge, you just can't make a woman love you if you don't. And they started this off as a, what's the word?
What?
No, it was a bluegrass song. And, I can't make you love me if you don't. I can't, whatever, if you won't, And for a long time, that song just stayed there and stayed there and stayed there. And they try to write more of it, and it wouldn't come. Then one day, Mike was dropping his kids off at school, and he got back to the piano, and it just fell out. And so he wrote the first verse and the chorus, and then it took him a couple days, him and Alan, to finish it. But this is, to me, that's just a remarkable story about whatever your passion is, whatever your creative pursuit is. That's so often the way it works. And Mike is such an important part of the show, and it was our 9th season before we even got him on the show. But from years and years and years ago, when that song was out, he played a very important role in this show. And that was when I heard a demo of that song back in, 1990, something like that. I was at a songwriting workshop in Cincinnati. And I heard him sing, I Can't Make You Love Me, which is him, his keyboard, and there was a little string patch on the keyboard. And that was the demo that Bonnie Raitt heard. Now, as well as I like Bonnie... The new what? Oh, well, we did some taping at the old Natalie's, our interview segments there. The new Natalie's, we did tape one show there. It was not with an artist. It was my intros at on a compilation show in which we show it's kind of a compilation of the best things that did not make it on the air that season. So we have tape there. It's tough because they have a lot of stuff going on there, and there's a lot of noises, a lot of... they need the space. There's a lot of dishes cracking and that kind of stuff. But we've talked about doing a master series there. That's the one show we could do there. And Charlie and I know each other very well. We're good friends, and we just keep that conversation going. Yes, Debbie?
Eric, knowing what an awesome songwriter you are, have you ever left your commentator seat and played on the show?
I have. About maybe once or twice a season, I'll play something. But, it's so awkward to do that because, when we first started, I thought, we'll just go around and, I'll sing a song and all that. But it's very awkward to change the role. Say, oh, thank you, this is great, you're having you here. Well, I'd like to do a song now.
I will say that when he does a song, if you look, the camera usually pan the Grammy Award-winning guests, and they're often as not spellbound because they're not aware of the depth of talent he has as a writer. And they just go, well, Beth Nielsen Chapman was just like, holy cow, like that. You could read her lips while he was playing. But yeah, we have that discussion all the time, will it fit thematically? Will there be enough time? With the shortness of the shows have to be 20, as we turn them in to post-production, they have to be 26 minutes and 46 seconds. One of them came in at 45 seconds and was kicked right back to us, rejected. And it took 2 minutes.
I used that second to sing a song.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate you asking that. And often when I sing a song, I cut it so I don't do the whole thing or something like that. I hope to be singing one when we do our comedic song thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll get it.
Any other questions? This has just been a delight for us. In 10 years of doing this show, we've never done anything like this, never had a chance to talk about it at all. So this is a real pleasure for us. We appreciate your interest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.